Hi, I'm Evad999. You may remember me from such retro game reviews as Donkey Kong for 5 different consoles and Killer Instinct on the SNES. What? 0 views. Okay, you may not remember me from that one. More recently, we've been touring 2026 with 26 letters representing 26 games for the 2600. There's no escape from this journey because self-imposed time sinks are sometimes too numerically romanticized to ignore. In the latest episodes, we've burned rubber in Enduro, crossed 10 lanes of traffic and freeway, battled mischievous monsters and gremlins, and gone one-on-one with a blinking cursor in Hangman. Which brings us to the letter I, and to a sport defined by frozen rinks, flying elbows, and the occasional goal. Today we lace up our skates for ice hockey. Background viewing. I'm just going to throw in my boilerplate voiceover because I haven't done my due diligence on this yet. Be sure to check out, insert channel name here, and their coverage of this title. Link in the description. Basics. Platform, Atari 2600, publisher, Activision. The programmer was Alan Miller, and for those of you keeping up with this series, he was also the programmer for Freeway, which we reviewed just a few episodes back. Ice Hockey was released in 1981 on 4K of memory. It falls under the sports genre. I don't think there'll be too much pushback on that claim, and uses the standard joystick controller, or any compatibles. It offers gameplay for 1 or 2 players competitive, but no co-op modes. Overview. Yes, Ice Hockey. Activision's minimalist take on the hottest game on ice. You've got 2 skaters per team, no goalies, no penalties, and no idea how this would possibly qualify as professional hockey. But hey, it was 1981. Turns out, a game can be stripped way down from its real-life inspiration and still manage to be fun. Who knew all that hockey really needed was 4 guys, 2 nets, and no rules? Somewhere, a Canadian just fainted. The premise is simple. 1 puck, 4 skaters, 2 nets, 0 fans, no ref, no whistles, but pure pixelated chaos. It's a surprisingly energetic game for its era, but don't come looking for realism. There are no offsides, no icing, no power plays, no Zamboni in sight. It's more like a pickup game at the pond. If the pond were a digital void and all the players had the heart of Guy Lafleur and the pathing of an Etch-a-Sketch. You chase the puck, you pass when you remember that that's an option, and you shoot wildly. Then you get body checked into a different zip code. It's simple stuff on paper, but aiming, or rather, timing your shots with any precision takes practice, and maybe even a seance. The CPU holds its own surprisingly well. Sure, once you've figured out a few angles and tricks, you can really rack up the wins, but the AI never quite rolls over and dies. Even after you're able to accomplish 10 consecutive victories, the score still feels a little too close for comfort. You won't dominate. Of course, the ultimate upgrade is finding a human opponent who's comparable in experience. That's when the game truly shines, because nothing says timeless classic like shouting, "That was interference!" at your cousin in a game with no referees. What ice hockey lacks in real-world accuracy, it makes up for in speed and accessibility. There is a learning curve, but let's call it more of a gentle slope than a punishing cliff. And while it's unlikely to convert die-hard EA Sports loyalists, it has a strange charm that can reel in players who usually avoid sports games entirely. After all, when it's just you, a joystick, and 3 minutes of frantic ice chaos, even the sports-averse might find themselves yelling, "He shoots!" only to watch the puck veer 70 degrees off target. Console switches. The power switch insta-freezes the lake into a natural hockey rink. The TV-type switch changes the team colors. You can choose between John Deere versus Pepsi and the Magpies versus the Doves. The difficulty switches left and right are player specific. Set it to B for normal speed and set it to A to limit your skater's speed by 25%. Harsh. The select switch cycles through the 4 game modes, each a combination of player count and game speed. Game 1, 1 player, normal speed. Game 2, 2 players, normal speed. Game 3, 1 player, fast speed. Game 4, 2 players, fast speed. And the reset switch starts your selected game mode. My youthful experience. I don't think I played any form of digital hockey until Breakaway 98 on the N64, so there's a glaring blind spot in my sports gaming history. Had I known about Activision's ice hockey during my Atari days, it probably would have been a permanent fixture in my rotation. I was already hooked on the sports itself, oftentimes faithfully listening to North Stars games on the radio while sketching cartoons or reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books before bed. A simple, fast-paced hockey game at home might have just deepened that fandom even more. But alas, no pixelated slap shots for me back then. Just hand-drawn ones in the margins of my Trapper Keeper. The look. This isn't the NHL. It's more like hockey in a minimalist art exhibit. No crowd, no glass, no Zamboni in sight. The goals are simple black rectangles that look less like nets and more like tears in the fabric of reality. But the rest, it's not bad. The skaters themselves are reasonably detailed, with vibrant uniforms that pop nicely against the ice-colored background. The sticks, when visible, look great. Only the skater you're currently controlling is rendered with a stick, which it might be a hardware limitation, but it doubles as a handy way to keep track of who you're steering. Functional minimalism at its best. The puck is a dark square, easy enough to follow, unless it's zipping around during one of the game's fast modes. Okay, that won't be a problem. I'm exaggerating. For effect. I feel like I need to explain that. That's humiliating. And while there's no scoreboard hanging above center ice, the HUD at the top of the screen gives you everything you need. The left player score, the time remaining, and the right player, or CPU, score. That's all you get, and honestly, all you need. There is no sprite flicker, which is a small miracle on the 2600, and a testament to Activision's usual polish. It won't win any visual awards, but it's clean, colorful, and efficient. Think less Saturday night showdown at the arena and more lunchtime scrimmage rendered on a light bright. Sound. There's not a lot to say here, and the game doesn't say much either. Ice hockey keeps things quiet, with only a handful of functional sound effects. The soundscape is stripped down. Let's just say Steve Perry won't be belting anything out during these matches. You'll hear a beep when you gain puck possession, another when someone scores, and a satisfying sound that covers both stick contact and body checks. Because in the 2600 universe, that's the same thing. The final buzzer is a deeper tone, letting you know that the 3-minute frenzy has ended, and your digital skaters can collapse in their invisible locker room. What's here in the audio department works. It's clear, it's responsive, and it gets the point across. But don't expect music, crowd noise, or anything resembling ambience. This is not going to be the game that's going to keep your roommate awake when you pull an all-nighter, simulating the Stanley Cup playoffs 3 minutes at a time. Gameplay. You control your players using the joystick, but only one at a time. The one closest to the puck. Or, rather, the one in the invisible control zone the game quietly enforces. When the puck drifts across that boundary, control automatically transfers to your other player, and the first one is frozen in place. Until it's his turn again. The shift isn't always intuitive, but once understood, it opens the door to a bit of strategy. For instance, positioning your soon-to-be inactive skater in a helpful spot before control changes can make a big difference, either to prevent a goal or to set up an offensive rush. To shoot or pass, just press the button. But there's a nuance. The puck doesn't stay glued to your stick. It slides side to side in a rhythmic motion. The angle of your shot depends on when you press the button when the puck is within that arc. Until you've adjusted to the timing, shots tend to go, let's say, creatively off target. Once you get the rhythm down, however, you'll find it much easier to aim intentionally. Of course, the window to line up your shot is often cut short when your opponent barges in and derails your plan. That's part of the charm. The game speed comes in two varieties, slow and fast. The difference is tied to the puck, not the skaters. Playing fast mode after a slow mode game doesn't feel all that noticeable, but going from fast to slow feels like somebody replaced the puck with a sandbag. Meanwhile, the difficulty switches affect your skater's speed. Position A reduces your movement by 25%. It's a stark enough difference to use as a handy handicap when playing against someone less experienced, or to simulate the feeling of skating through molasses. Face-offs are handled like, well, they are handled, I guess. The puck will spawn at the center of the ice with existing momentum in what seems to be a random direction, and the race for possession begins. The CPU is solid. Early on, it can be tough to beat. After some practice, you'll find consistent ways to win, but it rarely becomes a total blowout. Most games remain close, 13-11, 7-6, maybe even 10-10. Yes, ties are very possible, and there is no overtime or shootout. The computer never gives up, and that keeps single-player modes viable beyond the first few matches. That said, playing against a human opponent is a definite upgrade, especially if you find somebody whose skill level is comparable to your own. That's when the game becomes less about exploiting patterns and more about reacting in real time, where frantic scrambles and chaotic goals become the norm. Many game design decisions allow for these high-scoring games. There's a lot of open ice, the only stoppages follow a goal, and the game results in scores more reminiscent of the 1980s NHL barn burners than the more defensive grinds of the late 90s. You can't set up a neutral zone trap when there are no lines on the ice. Without refs and linesmen, well, the action is flowing. No offsides, no icing, no whistles, just action. The puck bounces off walls more like a racquetball than anything guided by physics, and it's not going to hug the boards. The puck on the pond keeps on bouncing, and there's no downtime. Even seasoned sports game fans might appreciate how refreshingly uncluttered this is. Just a small handful of elements to control, and 3 frantic minutes to see who comes out ahead. Other. Ice Hockey was one of several Activision titles eligible for a patch, part of that legendary mail-in program that rewarded digital victories with physical flair. The Ice Hockey requirement? Defeat the CPU. That's it. No lofty score goal, no photographic proof on a blurry Polaroid, just a signed witness statement confirming you managed to outskate a digital opponent for 3 minutes. Easily one of the more attainable patches in the catalog, and one of the easiest to fudge as well. But hey, listen, Activision trusted you, and if you were willing to fabricate a letter just to earn a 3x3 piece of fabric, I guess you probably needed that win more than they needed the verification. I didn't have ice hockey as a kid, so this was a challenge I circled back to in adulthood. And a few years ago, during my personal Activision patches grind, I finally checked it off that list. And yes, the footage still lives on my Twitch channel. It's time-stamped and everything. I've linked to the VOD in the description for those who enjoy archival proof, pixelated glory, or watching someone else achieve a mostly unimpressive goal. Me, myself, and sometimes you. Ice hockey holds its own as a solo affair. The CPU puts up enough of a fight to make victories feel earned, at least for a while. Once you've cracked the angles and developed a strategy, you'll win more often than not. but rarely by blowout. The computer has a way of keeping things close, like a clingy rival who just won't go away. I can't bring myself to say that it has rubber banding AI, considering it's the 2600. But, you know, it feels that way sometimes. Of course, two-player mode is where the real fun is. Human unpredictability adds just the right amount of chaos to elevate each match, and while the game seems like it might run out of steam quickly, it doesn't. Thanks to its brisk 3-minute matches, fast pace, and responsive controls, ice hockey stays surprisingly fresh, even after you've played just one more game 5 times in a row. Both puck speed settings are enjoyable, and if the default difficulty starts feeling too easy, flip that difficulty switch to the A position. Slow your skater down to a snail's crawl. Give that CPU the edge it so desperately craves. You'll earn your wins again, so long as you don't stop believing. Only this time, you'll do so with slightly sweatier palms. Who would like this? Atari fans are going to get more mileage out of ice hockey than die-hard hockey fans. And that's not a knock. It holds up extremely well as a 2600 sports title, but it can't compete with the realism, depth, or presentation of modern hockey games. What it does offer is a fast, fun, stripped-down experience that just happens to be wearing a helmet and some skates. This isn't about recreating the NHL. It's about quick matches, tight gameplay loop, and just enough nuance to reward repeat play. Your general retro gamer who enjoys some minimal complexity and modest aesthetics, both visual and audio, may find themselves charmed by what ice hockey delivers. I'm not always great at predicting exactly who will love a game, but I think there's a butter zone of personalities who are going to click with this one. If you like small mechanical wrinkles, if you enjoy twitchy back and forth competition, and if you're the type who finds satisfaction in saying, I stopped you from doing the thing, while doing the thing myself, this game has your name on it. It's not grueling, it's not epic, and it's definitely not a simulation. But it is competitive, easy to jump into, and fun to try and master. Want a real challenge? Try pitching a shutout against the computer. It's technically possible, but between you, me, and my complete lack of research that it has ever been done, I'm not holding my breath. Legacy. Ice hockey is a solid entry in the 2600 library. Never legendary, but far from forgotten. It still gets attention in retro circles, though these days the old TV commercial starring Phil Hartman seems to outshine the game itself. Honestly, I get it. The ad is iconic. But so is the game's just one more quick match energy that makes it a reliable go-to when you don't have a lot of time, but want a little competition. It is not the crown jewel of the console, but it is a great example of what Activision did so well. Take a simple concept, strip it down to the essentials, and polish it until it shines just enough. Alan Miller delivered a game that borrows a few real hockey ideas, then throws out the ones that get in the way of fun. In many ways, that approach makes ice hockey more playable than several of its contemporaries. So no, it's not a console-defining classic, but it is one of those titles that fills a valuable gap in any VCS collection. If your shelf needs fast-paced, light strategy competition with a vintage gloss, this one slides right into place. It's not the most famous game on the system, but it's one that still gets love from those willing to go their separate ways from modern titles. Overall, although it takes generous liberties with the rules of professional hockey, ice hockey on the Atari 2600 manages to deliver a satisfying and fun experience. Visually, it looks good for the era. Clean, colorful, and easy to follow. The audio is sparse, but what's there does the job. Gameplay is where the title earns its keep. Controls are intuitive, and the game has just enough nuance to make the learning process feel worthwhile. While more modes for AI difficulty levels would have helped extend replayability, the built-in challenge holds up well over time. Even after mastering a few strategies, the CPU remains feisty enough to keep things interesting. And if things ever do get too easy, you got that difficulty switch there to humble you. This is not a purist's hockey sim. It's not trying to be. What it does capture is the essential energy of the sport. Fast movement, puck battles, and back and forth action without bogging it down with offsides or line changes. Whether you've got an hour to kill or just 3 minutes, ice hockey slots easily into any gaming session. It's flexible, dependable, and always ready for one more play. Next, for the letter J, we will need to catch the midnight train. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you next mission.